Lali-ho everyone! Welcome to my first ever lore video on Final Fantasy XIV. Before we begin, I want to warn you that this is a major spoiler video about the events of Endwalker. So if there are those of you who haven't finished the main story of the expansion, please turn this video off now and maybe come back later once you have completed it. Now that the spoiler warning is out of the way, let's get started with what Dynamis is, how we learn of its existence, and how it affects the Final Fantasy XIV universe. I believe it will do well to start with the etymology of the word. Dynamis comes from the ancient Greek word Dynamis, meaning potentiality, which is a Greek philosophical concept of power and ability that refers to any possibility a thing can have. On the other hand, Akasha, which is the word used by the Hunnish alchemists for Dynamis, comes from Sanskrit with the meanings of space or sky. It also has other various, quite interesting meanings with religious backgrounds, such as the basis and essence of all things in the material world in Vedantic Hinduism, but I will not go into further detail. However, I will leave links in the description for those who are interested. In Endwalker, we are first introduced to the concept of Dynamis, without knowing what it actually is, via the Elpis flowers found in Labyrinthos. As explained by a Sharlayan botanist nearby, these flowers, which they call heart blooms, are special in the way that they react to the strong emotions around them, something unique and has practically never been heard of. In fact, there has been no conclusive research on this phenomenon, save for the theories of a handful of scholars throughout the entire history. The botanist's statement relays this information clearly. Heart blooms are attuned to ambient emotion. Intense feelings spur the petals to change color. Bright, glowing hues in the presence of joy, dark, subdued shades for frustration or despair. Yet, even with the collected wisdom of Sharlayan at our disposal, we have yet to identify the underlying principle of this empathic effect. To further complicate matters, every culture, even dimly aware of its existence, has given it a different name and mythos. Our attempts to study it via historical records have been an exercise in frustration. The second time we hear about Dynamis is actually in Thavnair from Nidana, who sees the flower glow in our hand. She tells us about Akasha, which is one of the unseen energies defined by Hunnish alchemical theory that's described as an essence influenced by feelings. She says, "Foreign scholars often conflate Akasha and ether, but we see them as separate concepts. Ether is an energy which permeates the land. It exists within animals, objects, even the air we breathe, affecting all through which it flows. Akasha, on the other hand, exists in a domain beyond our reach. Akasha can neither be created nor destroyed. It's beyond our power to purposefully alter or manipulate. The only thing observed to influence it is an abundance of, I want to say, spiritual emotion." Thanks to Nidana's explanation, we learn a lot more about Dynamis and its theoretical workings. With the additional information we get from Hermes and Elpis, we also know that Dynamis is far more abundant than ether and makes up to 68.3% of all energy in the Final Fantasy XIV universe, which coincides with and a reference to the measurements of dark energy in our universe, by the way. But if this is the case, if Dynamis is more abundant, then why have we never heard of it before? Why hasn't there been a lot more research on the subject, not even during the time of the ancients? The answer is rather simple, but still requires an explanation. Ether, as stated, permeates everything. The land, the living beings, the inanimate objects, everything you can think of as the concrete energy that is simply a lot more powerful and easier to manipulate. It can be perceived by senses and can readily be altered. Dynamis, on the other hand, is an abstract form of energy that is spiritual and emotional. It cannot be seen or felt, and it is far weaker than ether even though it's more abundant. Another reason why Dynamis is less powerful is because ether simply negates the effects of it. That's why the ancients, who were extremely dense in ether, never even knew about its existence because they were not able to feel its presence, let alone manipulate it. Only very, very few of their number actually heard about it. So much so that even the creation of the Elpis flower was considered an accident and not a purposeful study on the matter. However, they knew about the beings that were able to respond to Dynamis. The entelechies, they called them. These entelechies were extremely thin on ether and thus were able to interact with the unseen energy in some way, shape or form, be it a simple reaction to the energy itself, like the Elpis flower, or full-fledged control of the power, like the Meteia. In fact, this is why Hermes created the Meteia that way to begin with, so that they would be able to traverse in space away from the ether-rich planets where Dynamis would be the prevalent source of energy. At some point, Meteion even assumes that we might also be an entelechy due to the low density of our ether. However, the thinness of our ether is due to us being sundered, not because we are an entelechy, and Dynamis is one of the reasons why we were sundered in the first place. When the ancients summoned Zodiark to rewrite the laws of the world and shrouded Aetheris with an etheric bubble, for lack of a better word, they did this by sacrificing half of their population. This did not sit well with Vana, and she was against further sacrifices, as it just consumed them and did not provide the means to perpetually overcome Dynamis. So the Sundering was her solution to give mankind a chance to stand against Meteion and the power of this abstract energy she used. This was extremely risky, because in Endwalker, with the obliteration of Zodiark and the etheric bubble, Meteion was finally able to unleash her Song of Oblivion to try to kill everyone on Aetheris. However, this also gave us the opportunity to face her and silence her song. So, how has Dynamis affected our existence? The simple answer is, we do not know. As I mentioned earlier, there are no records or conclusive research on the subject in the entire history of Aetheris, save for a few theories. This doesn't mean that it hasn't affected anything at all, it simply means that we don't have any concrete evidence. However, we do have some hints here and there that might help us better understand its effects. In order to give you one of the most prominent examples, I would like to take you all to the Dancer Job questline. In these quests, we meet Troupe Falsium, that hail from Thavnir, and we learn that they perform in various cities in Eorzea. Nashmera, the leader of the performers, asks us to join them and learn the ways of the ancient dance, Kriegsdans. As we continue the story, we learn that the main reason behind their trips is to find the sources of a phenomenon that affects people and is highly contagious, the Totentans. This happens when a person gives into their sorrow and despair and spreads the darkness in their hearts to those near them, attacking anyone in sight while dancing to their deaths and causing menacing monsters to appear. With the use of Kriegsdans, the dancers try to eliminate these negative feelings and bring joy and hope to the people so that the Totentans doesn't spread further. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Another example of potential use of Dynamis is related to the Bard job. The whole concept of the Bard is to support their friends and comrades with the power of their songs. They boost feelings of courage and hope as well as mental and emotional strength with their performances in times of need. While all jobs essentially depend on the consumption of ether to use their abilities, I believe we can safely theorize that examples like these are hints that we may have been unwittingly tapping into the power of Dynamis every now and then. Urianger also speculates on an unintentional use of this abstract energy, faith and prayer. In Ultima Thule, the Scions pave the way forward for us through their sacrifices, and their faith in the Warrior of Light's sheer willpower to forge ahead cements our success. And we should not forget how they actually manipulated the surrounding energy with their prayers to shield us from the Endsinger's fatal attack. Although this is most likely still not intentional, but rather a byproduct of the nature of Ultima Thule. The same goes for the aftermath of our final encounter with Xenos. As we lie completely exhausted after our fight, the teleportation device simply appears to take us back to the safety of Ragnarok. Was it because of our strong wish to go back home? Or our comrades' prayers that we returned? Or, as speculated, maybe it was Xenos himself, wishing with his final breath that we made it back safe and sound. We will probably never learn for sure, but at the universe's end, where emotions dictate reality, anything is possible. I would like to direct your attention to other instances where prayer played a significant role throughout the story, the summonings. We know that the requirement to summon a primal is to provide vast quantities of ether. However, only the ether itself does not summon the primal. The prayers do. While this definitely does not mean that Dynamis is purposefully used to complete the summoning, it may still be the focal point or the necessary catalyst to trigger it. Although all of this is pure speculation at this point, perhaps we will learn more about the connection between Dynamis and Faith in the upcoming Alliance Raid series, The Myths of the Realm, where we will learn more about the 12 deities of Eorzea. Before jumping to the most obvious use of Dynamis, it's also worth mentioning one entity we encountered before. One entity who, no matter how hard it tried, could not understand or replicate our strength. Omega. As a member of the Omicron race who had shed their flesh and become entirely composed of mechanical parts and data, Omega didn't have the capability to understand emotions and how they would affect the will and determination of a person. Of course, the Warrior of Light has a great reserve of and command over ether and is innately powerful. However, Cid's remarks after the final encounter with Omega indicate how we do not rely on physical or magical strength alone, but bolster ourselves through additional means, be it the power of our soul or the power of our emotions. Cid's words were, "Omega, the anomaly you see in us, the answer you search for, it's our heart, our spirit, the intangible strength of one's soul. It's not a quality that can be measured or acquired through any amount of analytical combat." And with this, we finally come to the confirmed use of Dynamis. Yep, you guessed it, limit breaks. As stated by Nidana, transcending the limits of one's capabilities is a manifestation of Akasha, the invisible essence harnessed by heart, mind, and unyielding spirit. By combining the gameplay perspective of filling up the limit gauge with the story perspective of how we accumulate various emotions throughout a fight, we can see how we are able to briefly push beyond our limits and unleash extremely powerful abilities. This is confirmed during the third trial of Endwalker, where the tank uses Limit Break 3 and surprises the Endsinger, who then questions if we are using Dynamis to counter her otherwise deadly attack. A small note that I would like to add here, and it's about Elidibus. Although he was an unsundered Ascian, we know that he was able to use limit breaks throughout our encounter with him. Knowing that the Ancients had no idea what this energy was, we can only assume two possibilities. One, as he transformed into the Warrior of Light and claimed that he was the mankind's first hero and his final hope, he was somehow able to unknowingly tap into this energy. Or, two, as he essentially drew upon the strengths and desires of the heroes he had summoned, he was able to, again unknowingly, make use of this power. It's also worth mentioning that Elidibus' attack was considerably weaker than ours, confirmed by the fact that we were able to counter his Limit Break 4 with our Limit Break 3. So, with all being said, where does this take us? First of all, we are now aware that ether is not the only kind of energy in existence. We not only know what Dynamis is, but also sort of understand how it works. I would say even better than the Ancients ever did. I would still say that we had never purposefully manipulated Dynamis, as we didn't even know about its existence up until Endwalker, and not even through limit breaks, because, let's be real, we didn't even know exactly how we triggered them. But this opens up new possibilities to better understand and perhaps thoroughly study to further our knowledge on how to use the powers at our disposal. Maybe even take it a step further out of mere theories and create combinational uses of ether and Dynamis. Considering that we are essentially ether-based beings from the source who have been rejoined quite a few times, with denser souls when compared to the souls in the shards, for example, we are probably at a slight disadvantage when it comes to interacting with Dynamis. Still, we are not as etherically dense as the Ancients, and this gives us the chance to work on the current theories, and maybe one day it will be within our power to purposefully alter and manipulate this energy for various improvements. Probably not to the extent as Meteion did. Nevertheless, I am quite excited to see where this will lead us. What are your thoughts on Dynamis? Do you know any other instances where we might have interacted with it? And what do you think lies in our future? I would love to learn your opinions, so do not hesitate to leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and don't forget to check my other social media links in the description. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves. Bye!